Halloween night, 2023. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting a plastic pirate hat that cost $12 at the grocery store. The eye patch kept sliding down my face, and the fake sword looked like something a toddler would use to fight imaginary dragons. Behind me, Ember Jossman, my wife of 8 years, squeezed herself into a black catsuit that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. "How do I look?" she asked, striking a pose that belonged in a magazine I wasn't supposed to admit I read. "Like trouble," I said, which was the truth wrapped in what she'd take as a compliment. "My name is Tanner Jossman, and I manage the Riverside Grill downtown. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps our 2 kids in soccer cleats and art supplies. At 37, I've learned that life rarely matches the brochure. Marriage is mostly negotiating who takes out the garbage and pretending to care about reality television. Halloween is amateur hour for adults who peaked in college. But Ember lived for nights like this. At 35, she still turned heads at every grocery store and parent-teacher conference. She taught fitness classes at the community center, which meant she spent her days surrounded by suburban moms who treated her like some kind of wellness guru. Tonight, in that catsuit, she looked like she could steal the crown jewels or break every heart in a 5-mile radius. "Ready to go, Captain Hook?" she teased, grabbing her keys. "It's a pirate costume, not Peter Pan," I corrected, following her to the garage. "And technically I'm plundering your social calendar tonight." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Ember's laugh used to fill rooms. These days, it barely filled the space between us. The party was at Richard and Nikki Morrison's house, a suburban McMansion with a 3-car garage and a mortgage that probably cost more than my annual salary. Richard had been my best friend since high school, back when we thought we'd conquer the world instead of settling for middle management and weekend barbecues. Now he sold insurance and hosted Halloween parties where grown adults pretended to be pirates and superheroes. Cars lined the street when we arrived. Through the windows, I could see costumed figures moving around, drinks in hand, laughter spilling onto the front lawn. Someone had decorated with fake tombstones and plastic skeletons. Orange lights twinkled from every available surface. "There's Susie," Ember said, waving to a woman dressed as a witch. Susie Farrow was Ember's best friend since middle school, married to my business partner Wes. She had dark hair, sharp features, and the kind of sense of humor that cut deep when she wanted it to. "Where's Tarzan?" I asked, looking around for Wes. "Probably flexing in a mirror somewhere," Ember said, but her voice had an edge I couldn't quite place. We walked through the front door into chaos. The Morrison house had been transformed into a Halloween wonderland. Fake spiderwebs covered the chandelier. A fog machine pumped artificial mist across the hardwood floors. Adults in costumes that ranged from creative to ridiculous filled every room, drinks in hand, voices raised over a playlist that mixed classic rock with monster movie soundtracks. "Tanner!" Richard appeared at my elbow, dressed as a vampire complete with plastic fangs that made him lisp. "Glad you made it. Bar's in the kitchen. Food's everywhere else." "Thanks, Dracula," I said. "Nice party. Very orange." "Nikki went overboard with the decorations," he admitted. "She's been planning this since August." I scanned the crowd, taking inventory. John Mitchell, my friend from the restaurant business, had come as a zombie chef. The Hendersons from down the street were matching pirates, which made me feel less ridiculous about my costume. Various neighbors, co-workers, and friends of friends filled the spaces between, all pretending that dressing up for one night made them interesting. And then I saw him. Wes Farrow stood near the fireplace, holding court with a group of women who hung on his every word. He'd come as Tarzan, which basically meant he wore a loincloth and showed off the physique he'd been building since high school. At 39, Wes still looked like he could wrestle a lion and win. He was my business partner in a small construction consulting firm, the kind of guy who solved problems with his hands and charm instead of spreadsheets and meetings. He was also staring at my wife like she was the only person in the room. "Earth to Tanner," Richard said, following my gaze. "You okay?" "Fine," I lied. Just wondering if Wes knows that Tarzan actually wore more clothes in the movies. Richard laughed, but I caught something in his expression. A flicker of discomfort, maybe. Or knowledge he didn't want to share. Ember had already made her way across the room, accepting compliments on her costume from everyone she passed. Women told her she looked amazing. Men told her the same thing with their eyes. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, confident and magnetic in a way that reminded me why I'd fallen for her in the first place. "She looks incredible tonight." Nikki Morrison appeared beside me, dressed as a 1920s flapper. That costume must have cost a fortune. "Worth every penny," I said, though I had no idea what it cost. Ember handled her own shopping, especially when it came to clothes. "How are things with you two?" Nikki asked, and something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. "Fine," I said automatically. "Why?" "Just asking," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Marriage is hard work, you know, especially when you're both busy with careers and kids." Before I could ask what she meant by that, John Mitchell appeared with a beer for me and a story about a kitchen disaster that had him laughing so hard he could barely get the words out. I let myself get pulled into the conversation, but part of my attention stayed focused on Ember across the room. She was talking to Susie now, their heads close together like they were sharing secrets. Wes had joined them, standing just a little too close to my wife. When Ember laughed at something he said, she touched his arm. Just a brief contact, the kind of casual touch that happens at parties between friends. Except it didn't look casual. "You're staring," John said, following my gaze. "Just keeping an eye on things," I said. "Wes is harmless," John said, but he didn't sound entirely convinced. "All show, no substance." "Right," I said, taking a long drink of my beer. The party continued around us. People moved from room to room, refilling drinks, sampling food, posing for photos that would end up on social media. I played my part, laughing at jokes, making small talk, complimenting costumes. But I kept watching Ember and Wes gravitate toward each other throughout the night, watching the way they found excuses to stand close, watching Susie watch them both with an expression I couldn't quite read. Around 11, I went looking for the bathroom and found myself in the Morrisons' hallway, surrounded by family photos and kids' artwork. The main bathroom was occupied, so I headed upstairs to the guest bathroom. The hallway was quiet, insulated from the party noise below. That's when I heard them. "Can't keep doing this," Ember's voice coming from the master bedroom. "Why not?" Wes, his voice lower, more intimate than it had any right to be. "Because it's getting complicated," Ember said. "Tanner's not stupid." "Tanner's not paying attention," Wes replied. "When's the last time he really looked at you? I mean, really looked?" I stood frozen in the hallway, my plastic sword suddenly feeling very real in my hand. Through the crack in the bedroom door, I could see shadows moving, 2 figures standing close together. "This weekend," Ember said. "We can talk about it this weekend." "Your sister's place?" Wes asked. "Yeah," Ember said. "Just you and me, no interruptions." I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. The conversation continued, but I couldn't hear the words anymore over the sound of my own pulse. I made it to the guest bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. The pirate costume looked even more ridiculous now. The eye patch had slipped again, and the fake sword hung at my side like a child's toy. I looked like exactly what I was, a middle-aged restaurant manager playing dress-up while his wife planned a weekend getaway with another man. When I came back downstairs, the party was winding down. People were saying their goodbyes, collecting coats, making plans for coffee dates and lunch meetings. Ember stood by the front door, chatting with other guests, looking perfectly normal, like she hadn't just been upstairs planning her next move. "Ready to go?" she asked when she saw me. "Whenever you are," I said. We said our goodbyes to Richard and Nikki, thanked them for hosting, promised to get together soon. Normal party conversation, normal party behavior. But everything felt different now. Every smile seemed forced, every laugh seemed hollow. In the car, Ember talked about the costumes, the decorations, the food. She mentioned how good Susie looked as a witch, how funny John's zombie chef costume was, how Richard's vampire teeth made him impossible to understand. She didn't mention Wes. "Good party," I said when she paused for breath. "Yeah," she agreed. "Richard and Nikki always throw the best parties." "Wes seemed to be enjoying himself," I said, testing the waters. "Did he? I barely talked to him," Ember said, which was a lie so obvious it almost made me laugh. We drove the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, or what used to be comfortable silence. Now it felt like the space between us was filled with things we weren't saying, questions I wasn't asking, answers I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. At home, we went through our usual routine. Ember removed her makeup while I hung up my costume. We brushed our teeth side by side at the bathroom sink, like we had thousands of times before. She kissed me goodnight, a quick peck that landed somewhere near my cheek. "I'm tired," she said. "Long day." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." She fell asleep quickly, or pretended to. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation I'd overheard, the way they'd stood together, the casual intimacy in their voices. "This weekend. Your sister's place." I knew Ember's sister lived in Chicago, about 3 hours away. I knew Ember visited her regularly, usually for girls' weekends or shopping trips. I'd never questioned it before. Why would I? But now, lying in the dark next to my wife, I found myself questioning everything. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of November weather that makes you want to stay in bed and pretend the world doesn't exist. I woke up alone. Ember's side of the bed was cold, which meant she'd been up for a while. I could hear her moving around downstairs, probably getting ready for her Saturday morning yoga class. I found her in the kitchen, dressed in workout clothes, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was packing her gym bag with the focused efficiency of someone who had places to be and people to see. "Morning," I said, starting the coffee maker. "Morning," she replied without looking up. "I've got back-to-back classes this morning. Then I need to run some errands. I'll probably be gone most of the day." "No problem," I said. "I've got some paperwork to catch up on anyway." She kissed my cheek on her way out, the same perfunctory gesture from the night before. The front door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving me alone with my coffee and my thoughts. I tried to focus on work. Invoices needed processing, schedules needed updating, vendor contracts needed reviewing. The restaurant business never sleeps, even on weekends. But my mind kept drifting back to the conversation I'd overheard at the party. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Ember. "Running late, grabbing lunch with Susie. See you tonight." I stared at the message, looking for hidden meaning in 12 simple words. Was she really with Susie? Or was this part of whatever plan she and Wes had discussed? I called the gym. "Riverside Fitness, this is Jessica," a cheerful voice answered. "Hi, this is Tanner Jossman. I was wondering if my wife Ember is teaching today." "Oh, hi, Mr. Jossman. Ember finished her last class about an hour ago. She left right after. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "Just trying to coordinate schedules. Thanks." So she had been at the gym, but she'd left an hour ago, and lunch with Susie didn't usually take 3 hours. I found myself doing something I'd never done before, checking up on my wife. I called Susie. "Hey, Tanner," she answered on the third ring. "What's up? Is Ember with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. There was a pause, just a beat too long. "No, why?" "She said she was having lunch with you. I was trying to reach her about dinner plans." Another pause. "Oh, that. We were supposed to meet, but she canceled. Something about errands. You know how she is." I did know how she was. Ember was many things. but a liar had never been one of them. At least I'd never caught her at it before. "Right," I said. "Well, if you hear from her, tell her to call me." "Sure thing," Susie said, but something in her voice sounded off, like she was reading from a script. I spent the afternoon in a strange state of suspended animation. I tried to work, tried to watch television, tried to do anything that would keep my mind occupied, but every few minutes, I found myself checking my phone, waiting for Ember to call or text with an update. She came home around 6, carrying shopping bags from the mall and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who'd had a successful day. "How was lunch with Susie?" I asked. "Good," she said, setting down her bags. "We went to that new place downtown, the one with the salads." "Susie said you canceled," I said, watching her face carefully. For just a moment, her expression flickered, like she was recalibrating, choosing her next words carefully. "Oh, that. We rescheduled. I forgot I had that appointment first." "What appointment?" "Hair appointment," she said, running her fingers through her hair. "Just a trim." I looked at her hair. It looked exactly the same as it had that morning. "Looks good," I said. "Thanks," she said, already moving toward the stairs. "I'm going to take a shower. What do you want to do for dinner?" We ordered pizza and watched a movie, going through the motions of a normal Saturday night. But everything felt performative now, like we were both playing roles we'd memorized. Ember seemed distracted, checking her phone more often than usual. When I asked about it, she said it was just work stuff. Sunday was worse. Ember announced over breakfast that she was planning to visit her sister the following weekend. "Just a girls' weekend," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We haven't seen each other in months." "That sounds nice," I said, though my stomach was twisting into knots. "When are you leaving?" "Friday afternoon. I'll probably come back Sunday evening." "Want me to drive you to the airport?" "No need," she said quickly. "I'm driving. It's only 3 hours and I like the road trip." 3 hours to Chicago. Plenty of time to meet someone along the way, or to meet someone there. I spent Sunday afternoon doing yard work, raking leaves and cleaning gutters while my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe the conversation I'd overheard had been innocent. Maybe Ember really was just planning a weekend with her sister. But then I remembered the way Wes had looked at her at the party, the way she'd touched his arm, the way they'd gravitated toward each other all night. Monday morning, I did something that felt like crossing a line. I checked our shared email account. Ember and I had set up a joint email address years ago for household stuff. Bills, school communications, appointment confirmations. We both had access to it, though we rarely used it for anything important. It was mostly just a digital filing cabinet for the mundane details of married life. That's where I found it. A confirmation email from the Lakeside Resort, dated that morning. 2 guests, check-in Friday, check-out Sunday. Deluxe suite with king bed and lake view. The romantic getaway package that included champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries, and couples massage appointments. The reservation was under Ember's name. The second guest was listed as Wes Farrow. I stared at the screen for a long time, reading the confirmation over and over like the words might change if I looked at them hard enough. But they didn't change. The details were all there, spelled out in cheerful marketing language designed to help couples reconnect and rekindle their romance. My wife was planning a romantic weekend getaway with my business partner. I printed the confirmation email, then I screenshot it. Then I saved it to 3 different folders on my computer. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I wanted evidence that couldn't be deleted or denied. The rest of Monday passed in a blur. I went through the motions at work, reviewed vendor contracts, handled staff scheduling, dealt with the usual restaurant crises, but part of my mind was somewhere else, processing what I'd discovered and trying to figure out what to do next. The obvious answer was to confront Ember, to show her the email and demand an explanation, to have the conversation that married couples are supposed to have when trust breaks down. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was strategy, or maybe I just wanted to see how far she would go with the lie. That evening, Ember talked about her upcoming weekend trip with the enthusiasm of someone genuinely excited about seeing family. "Sarah's been so stressed with work lately," she said, referring to her sister. "I think she really needs some girl time. We're planning to hit the outlets, maybe get our nails done. You know, sister stuff." "Sounds perfect," I said. "She's lucky to have you." Ember smiled, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. Warm, genuine, caring. It almost made me doubt what I'd seen in that email. Almost. Tuesday, I called the Lakeside Resort. "I'd like to confirm a reservation," I told the cheerful woman who answered the phone. "Of course. What name is the reservation under?" "Tanner Jossman," I said. "Check in this Friday." "Let me see. Yes, here it is. Mrs. Jossman, party of 2, Deluxe Lake View Suite. You're all set for the romantic getaway package. Is there anything you'd like to add to your reservation?" "Actually, I need to verify the second guest name," I said. "I want to make sure it's spelled correctly on your records." "Of course." "I show the second guest as Wesley Farrow, Farrow. "That's correct," I said, my voice somehow staying steady. "Thank you. Is there anything else I can help you with today? We're really looking forward to having you stay with us." "No," I said. "I think I have everything I need." I hung up and sat in my office, staring out the window at the lunch crowd walking by on the sidewalk. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. None of them were sitting in a restaurant office at 2 in the afternoon, confirming that their spouse was planning a romantic getaway with someone else. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront Ember. I wasn't going to demand explanations or try to save our marriage with tears and ultimatums. I was going to do something else entirely. I was going to let her hang herself with her own rope. Wednesday evening, I started laying the groundwork. "I've been thinking about your weekend trip," I told Ember as we cleaned up after dinner. "Oh?" she said, not looking up from loading the dishwasher. "I think it's great that you and Sarah are making time for each other. Family is important." "It really is," Ember agreed. "We've both been so busy lately." "I was thinking maybe I should plan something similar," I said. "A guy's weekend, maybe invite Richard and John, make it a regular thing." "That sounds wonderful," Ember said, and she seemed genuinely pleased by the idea. "You deserve some time to relax." "Maybe I'll call Wes too," I said casually. "See if he wants to join us." Ember's hand froze on the dishwasher door. Just for a second, but I caught it. "Wes might be busy this weekend," she said. "I think Susie mentioned something about family plans." "Really? What kind of family plans?" "I'm not sure," Ember said, closing the dishwasher with more force than necessary. "You know how Susie is. Always planning something." Interesting. So Wes had an alibi too. I wondered what story he'd told his wife. Thursday night, Ember packed for her trip. I watched her fold clothes into her weekend bag, selecting outfits with more care than usual. She packed the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. The perfume she only wore for special occasions. Lingerie that definitely wasn't designed for sister bonding time. "Traveling light?" I asked. "Sarah and I are planning to do some shopping," she said. "I don't want to overpack." "Smart thinking," I said. "Have you heard from her today? Is she excited about the weekend?" "Oh yes," Ember said quickly. "She can't wait. It's been too long since we've had quality time together." I nodded and smiled, playing the role of the supportive husband. But inside, I was counting down the hours until Friday afternoon, when Ember would leave for her sister's weekend, and I would put my plan into motion. Because I had a plan now. A simple, elegant plan that would expose the truth without me having to fire a single shot. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving people enough rope to hang themselves. And I was about to provide all the rope Ember needed. Friday afternoon arrived with the kind of crisp November clarity that makes everything seem sharper, more defined. Ember finished packing around 2 o'clock, checking and rechecking her weekend bag like she was preparing for a much longer journey. "I should get going," she said, glancing at her watch. "Traffic's going to be terrible, and I promised Sarah I'd be there by dinner time." "Drive safe," I said, kissing her cheek. "Tell Sarah I said hello." "I will," she promised, shouldering her bag. "I'll call you tonight when I get there." I watched from the front window as she backed out of the driveway, her car disappearing around the corner. Then I went to my computer and opened our family group chat. The Jossman family chat had been Ember's idea, a way to stay connected with parents, siblings, cousins, and in-laws scattered across 3 states. It included my parents in Florida, Ember's parents in Ohio, her sister Sarah in Chicago, my brother Mike in Denver, and about 15 other relatives who chimed in regularly with photos, updates, and commentary on family news. Ember loved that chat. She was always the first to share photos from family gatherings, to remember birthdays, to coordinate holiday plans. She'd carefully cultivated her image as the perfect daughter-in-law, the caring sister, the family member who kept everyone connected, which made what I was about to do even more effective. I opened a new message and typed, "Hey everyone, just wanted to share some exciting news about Ember's weekend getaway." Then I attached the hotel confirmation email. All of it. The reservation details, the romantic package description, the couple's massage appointments, the champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries, and most importantly, the guest list showing Ember Jossman and Wesley Farrow as the happy couple planning to reconnect and rekindle their romance. I added a brief message. "Looks like Ember's having quite the adventure with her sister this weekend. Thought you'd all want to know about this special family bonding time." Then I hit send. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing within minutes. First, my mother. "Tanner, what is this? Is this some kind of mistake?" Then Ember's mother. "I don't understand. Who is Wesley Farrow? Why isn't she staying with Sarah?" My brother Mike. "Dude, what the hell is going on?" Ember's cousin Jessica. "OMG, is this real? Is Ember having an affair?" The messages kept coming, faster than I could read them. Shock, confusion, anger, demands for explanation. The family group chat exploded into chaos as relatives tried to process what they were seeing. Sarah, Ember's sister, was one of the first to call me directly. "Tanner, what is this email about? Ember told me she was coming to visit this weekend, but I haven't heard from her since Tuesday." "You haven't heard from her?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No, and now I'm seeing this hotel reservation with some man's name on it. What's going on?" "I wish I knew," I said, which was technically true. I knew what was happening, but I didn't know why. "I found the confirmation in our shared email this morning. I was hoping you could explain it." "This is insane," Sarah said. "Ember would never... she's always talking about you and the kids. She loves you." "I thought so too," I said quietly. The phone calls continued throughout the afternoon. Ember's parents, my parents, siblings, cousins, family friends who'd been included in the group chat. Everyone wanted answers I couldn't provide, or rather, answers I chose not to provide directly. Instead, I let them draw their own conclusions from the evidence. Around 6 o'clock, my phone rang with a call from Ember. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Tanner," she said, and her voice was tight with panic. "What did you do?" "What do you mean?" I asked innocently. "The family chat, that email. Why did you send that?" "Oh, that," I said. "I thought everyone would be excited to hear about your romantic weekend. Isn't that what families do? Share good news?" "It's not what it looks like," she said quickly. "I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can," I said. "But maybe you should explain it to everyone else first. They're all very concerned. Tanner, please, let me come home. We can talk about this." "You're supposed to be in Chicago with your sister," I said. "Didn't you promise her quality time together?" There was a long pause. In the background, I could hear voices, music, the ambient noise of what sounded like a hotel lobby. "Where are you right now?" I asked. I'm driving," she said, but the background noise suggested otherwise. "Driving where?" Another pause. "I'm coming home." "From Chicago? That's a long drive. You must have just gotten there." "Tanner, stop playing games. We need to talk." "We are talking," I said. "And apparently, so is everyone else in your family. Your mom's been calling every 10 minutes. She's very confused about your travel plans." I could hear Ember breathing on the other end of the line, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. "I'll be home in 2 hours," she said finally. "Take your time," I said. "I'll be here." But I wouldn't be just sitting around waiting. I had more work to do. After Ember hung up, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. I screenshot every message from the family chat, saved every voicemail from confused relatives, printed copies of the hotel reservation and payment confirmations. If Ember wanted to play the explanation game, I was going to make sure I had all the evidence organized and ready. Then I did something that felt both necessary and slightly vindictive. I changed the locks. It took me about an hour to swap out the front door lock and the back door deadbolt. I'd done enough home improvement projects over the years to handle basic lock installation, and I wanted to make sure I controlled access to the house when Ember returned. While I worked, my phone kept buzzing with updates from the family chat. The initial shock was giving way to anger and taking sides. Ember's mother was defending her, insisting there must be some misunderstanding. My mother was asking pointed questions about our marriage that I didn't want to answer. My brother Mike was offering to drive up from Denver to help with the situation, which probably meant he wanted to punch someone. The most interesting response came from Ember's cousin Jessica, who worked in hotel management. "I looked up this lakeside resort," she posted to the group chat. "This romantic getaway package costs $800 a night. That's not exactly sister bonding money. And the couple's massage appointments? They're scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Both names are on the booking." She included screenshots of the resort's website, highlighting the package details and pricing. The evidence was becoming overwhelming, even for Ember's most loyal defenders. Around 8:30, I heard a car in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see Ember getting out of her car, moving with the quick, agitated steps of someone who was about to have a very difficult conversation. She tried her key in the front door. When it didn't work, she tried it again, jiggling the handle with increasing frustration. Then she started knocking. "Tanner, open the door." I took my time getting there, checking my appearance in the hall mirror first. I wanted to look calm, composed, completely in control of the situation. When I opened the door, Ember looked like she'd been through a blender. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her clothes wrinkled like she'd been sitting in a car for hours, which, I supposed, she had. "You changed the locks," she said. "Security upgrade," I replied. "Can't be too careful these days." She pushed past me into the house, dropping her weekend bag in the foyer. "We need to talk." "I agree," I said, closing the door behind her. "But first, you might want to check your phone. Your mother's been trying to reach you." Ember pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. I could see her face pale as she scrolled through the dozens of missed calls and messages. "How could you do this?" she asked, looking up at me with something that might have been genuine hurt. "How could you humiliate me like this?" "I didn't humiliate you," I said calmly. "I just shared some information with the family. Information I found in our shared email account. Information you put there." "It's not what it looks like," she said again, but the words sounded hollow even to her. "What does it look like?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife booked a romantic weekend getaway with my business partner and then lied to me about visiting her sister." Ember sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "It's complicated." "I'm sure it is," I said, sitting across from her. "Why don't you uncomplicate it for me?" For a moment, I thought she might actually tell the truth. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and I could see her weighing her options, trying to decide between confession and continued deception. She chose deception. Wes is going through a rough patch with Susie, she said. He needed someone to talk to, and I was just trying to help a friend. By booking a couple's massage? That was a mistake. I didn't realize what package I was selecting. I was just looking for a quiet place where we could talk without interruption. And you couldn't talk here, or at a coffee shop, or literally anywhere that didn't require lying to both our families. Ember's phone rang. Her mother's name appeared on the screen. You should answer that, I said. She's been very worried. Ember declined the call, but it started ringing again immediately. This time, it was her sister Sarah. They're not going to stop calling, I said. You might as well start explaining. Over the next hour, Ember fielded phone calls from increasingly upset family members. I listened as she tried to spin the hotel reservation as a misunderstanding, a booking error, a complicated situation that wasn't what it appeared to be. But her explanations kept changing, contradicting each other, becoming more elaborate and less believable with each call. The problem with lies is that they require perfect memory and flawless execution. The truth is much simpler. It stays consistent because it actually happened. By 10 o'clock, even Ember's mother was asking pointed questions about the timeline and details that didn't add up. Mom, I can't explain everything right now, Ember said into the phone, her voice strained with exhaustion. Just trust me that it's not what it looks like. But trust, once broken, is hard to repair with words alone. After she hung up from her mother, Ember turned to me with desperate eyes. What do you want? She asked. What will it take to fix this? I want the truth, I said simply. I told you the truth. No, I said, pulling out my phone. You told me a story, but I have the truth right here. I showed her the screenshot I'd taken of her text conversation with Wes, the one I'd glimpsed at the Halloween party when she'd left her phone on the kitchen counter, the one where they'd discussed finally having time alone and making this weekend special. Ember stared at the screen, her face going through a series of expressions: shock, anger, resignation, and finally, something that might have been relief. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough, I said. She nodded slowly, like she was finally accepting that the game was over. What happens now? She asked. I looked at my wife of 8 years, the mother of my children, the woman I'd thought I'd grow old with. She looked small and defeated, nothing like the confident fitness instructor who'd commanded attention at every party and social gathering. Now, I said, you get to explain to everyone why you lied, and I get to decide what comes next. My phone buzzed with another message from the family chat. This time, it was my brother Mike. Tanner, whatever you need, I'm here. This is messed up, but we've got your back. Similar messages were coming in from other family members, people who'd been shocked by the revelation, but were now rallying around me, offering support, expressing outrage on my behalf. Ember saw me reading the messages, and something in her expression shifted. You planned this, she said. You knew exactly what would happen when you sent that email. I shared information, I said. What happened next was up to everyone else. You destroyed my reputation. I think you did that yourself when you booked a romantic getaway with another man. Ember's phone rang again. This time it was Wes. She looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. Answer it, I said. I'd love to hear his explanation. But instead of answering, Ember declined the call and turned off her phone. I think, she said slowly, I need to find somewhere else to stay tonight. I think you're right, I agreed. She gathered her things and headed for the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. Tanner, she said without turning around. I'm sorry. I know, I said, but sorry doesn't fix this. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, processing what had just happened. My marriage was over. My family was in chaos. My business partnership with Wes was probably finished. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The truth was out, and the consequences were just beginning. Saturday morning brought a different kind of quiet to the house. Not the comfortable silence of a weekend morning with family, but the hollow emptiness of a space that suddenly felt too big for one person. I made coffee for one,